Hi, everybody. My name is Maria KOROLOV. Welcome back to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. I am the editor here at MetaStellar, and with me today is Nicholas NARBUTOVSKIH.
There you go. We got
it. One of our contributing writers. And every Friday, we read the top 10 books on the Amazon's free sci-fi and fantasy book list. We don't read the whole book. There's a ton of them. We usually get through maybe the first chapter or two or three, and we tell you guys what we think of it. So today we've got space battles and sexy aliens, and we've got sexy dragons and a bunch of other sexy things, and epic fantasy, and several dystopian kind of visions of the future. Various takes of them. So let's get into it. The first book today is Transient. Oh, but before we go into that, Nick, you have a book out and it made your category bestseller list. So talk to us about that.
So thank you. My book is called Steel in the Blood, and yeah, it was on the a couple of category bestseller lists, and it was a #1 new release as well. So I am absolutely thrilled. It's awesome, and I just everybody who's been a part of it, it's all because of all the amazing support I've had. So if you're interested in the book, it is kind of a mashup of Dune and The Expanse. With maybe a little bit of the three-body problem in there if you like the deeper stuff, but it's a pretty fun story. It's out right now on Kindles, so if you're in the Kindle sphere, you can read that for free on the Kindle Direct or Kindle Unlimited. And the paperback comes out in February. I am really excited. I just got some actual physical copies from my publisher yesterday. So
all right, that is exciting. So Nick is one of our regular contributors to MetaStellar, but this is your first time on the show, so welcome.
It is.
And
Thank you.
well, actually, you've been on the channel before, but it's your first time on the Free Friday thing.
I love books and I love free, so it's a great place to be.
All right, and the first book, Transient, the first of 3 books in the Immortal Wake tech noir saga. It bills itself as Blade Runner meets the Black Mirror. The other books are $3 each. They are not in Kindle Unlimited, and you read this one. So tell us what you thought.
So I did like this one better than some of the other ones that I read this week. So I think this is probably just because I am like the target audience for this sort of thing. The writing itself is good. I think that the author does a great job of dropping you right into some action scenes, so things move along, and they do a good job of kind of dropping those little bits and hints of the larger universe and the things that are kind of at work just below the surface in there. The only thing that was really I kind of struggled with was there's some very detailed explanation scenes of the action, and for me it just sort of dragged a little bit. So I find myself kind of skipping through to like, okay, well, what happens and then what? However, I was interested enough in the book to want to know what happens next. And so in my mind, that's a good solid read. And if you like tech noir, if you're into the sort of gritty, futures, dark futures, I really think this is a good one.
All right. So next up is a book that I read, Safe Passage by Clay Wise. Clay is a regular on this list. Let me show it to you guys. There you go. So Clay writes about EMP survival. EMP is electromagnetic pulse. The idea is that this happens for some reason, terrorists, solar flares, whatever, wipes out all electrical equipment, and society degenerates back to some kind of horrible state, and everybody has to fight for themselves in order to survive. I do not like these books. I am not the target audience for these books. I do not buy the premise that the main character's phone dies and they go, oh my God, there's been an EMP blast. I was right all along, pulls out 5 guns and starts shooting everybody around him before they shoot him. Not a big fan. So, and a lot of this guy's books kind of fall into that trope. This one's is a little different. The protagonist is a single mom, and yeah, she and her teenage daughter are going around killing people before, they get them. So there is, that aspect of it happening, but it's not like a macho survivalist guy finally proving to everyone who doubted him that he was right to stockpile cans of spam, right? So it's readable. It kind of has a Sarah Connor in the Terminator kind of vibe happening. So if you like that kind of thing, very readable book. This guy's books make the top 10 list a lot. So clearly a lot of people like them. Not my thing personally. So I'm not going to stick with it. But it's free. So if it is your kind of thing, definitely pick it up. And check out his other books too. A lot of them become free once in a while. So Between Ink and Shadows is another book that I read. It's an epic fantasy, and it's the first of 3 books in a series. The other books are $4 each. They're not in Kindle Unlimited, so you have to pay money for them. The 3rd book is due out this month. So Kindle Unlimited, for those who don't know, is you pay $10 a month and you can read all the books you want. There's millions of books in the system, including the Harry Potter books. So there's some really big name authors are participating in it. It's like the Netflix of books. I definitely am a member because I read a lot. So if you read a lot, check that out. And it's one of the things I look at when I look at a new series of books. I think, oh, these books are good, but is it good enough for me to pay cash for it if it's not in Kindle Unlimited? So it's one of the things that I do consider. So these books are not. So the premise here is that it's a fantasy world. Nim is a thief in this fantasy world. Her father was high up in the court, but he got involved with some like evil magic and wound up like being a prisoner, and her daughter has to pay off his debt. In this society, magic is illegal, and the criminal underworld is the only one that uses it, and her job is to steal something from the chief law enforcement officer in the country for this thief. So she's clearly in trouble. This is an impossible task. Is she going to be able to survive? Is she going to be able to get out from under this evil thief? So it's definitely a very richly realized world. It definitely pulls you in. If you like these kinds of epic fantasies, this is very readable. Strong female protagonists, lots of fancy clothes, and the usual fantasy world with the rich people and the poor people and the criminal underclass. So it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it, and I'm tempted to keep reading, even though I would have to pay money for the next book. So I do recommend it. The next book in the series, next book that we read is the classic naked chest on a book jacket book, Possessed by Tara Stone. It's the first of 6 books in the Raider Warlords of the Vandar, a sci-fi romance series. The other books are $5 each, and they're all in Kindle Unlimited. These are the kinds of books you would eat like potato chips. Okay, so the female protagonist is a really bad navigator. She works for her sister who owns a spaceship and who's delivering stuff to people, and she's hired for this job because her sister's nepotism, and she's really bad at her job, and she winds up taking the ship into the middle of this area controlled by these raiders, the Vandar, and the Vandar surround them and take them prisoner. And I kind of had to stop reading when the point of view switched to the alien boss of these raiders, and it was clear that the two of them were going to get together. So I don't like incompetent protagonists who get their jobs via nepotism. And so from the book jacket, she's going to be taken as a slave by this guy into sexual slavery in order to save her sister's life. And eventually, given the cover here, they're going to fall madly in love and live happily ever after. And I am sorry, but I just cannot get behind that. I know it's escapist fantasy, and I know a lot of people love it and can't get enough of it, but it's a little too much for me. So I did like the space battle part, but not everything that came after it. Next is another sexy book, Once Upon a Mermaid. And the author, Demelza Carlton, is a frequent flyer on this list. I mean, we've reviewed at least one of her books, I think several times this past year. And she writes a lot of series. And this is actually a box set of the first 4 books in 4 different series. So this is an awesome deal. It's got Ocean's Justice, which we reviewed last week. It's the first book in the 6th book Siren of War fantasy series. There's Silence, Little Mermaid Retold, which is one of the 25 books in the Romance, a Medieval Fairy Tale series. This has Ocean's Secret, the first of 3 books in the Siren of Secrets series, and Halcyon, the first of 2 books in the Colony Aqua series. So these are all sci-fi or fantasy books that have mermaids or mermen in them. So that's the common theme. So if you want to check out this author, this is a good entry point into 4 different series for free. So that's a great deal. And the first book, Ocean's Justice, Amira Lutfi read this last week, and she says that it's a fast but oddly structured story with vibes of reverse harem. And reverse harem is where the female protagonist has multiple boyfriends at once and doesn't have to choose between them. I mean, it's fantasy, so yeah, why not? She didn't like it that much, but a lot of people do. Demelza Carlton is on this list a lot. So if this is your kind of book, check it out. Fantastic deal. Next, Settlement's Cradle by Kyra Gregory. The first of 5 books in the Settlement, an epic fantasy series. The other books are between $1 and $4 each, and they're all in Kindle Unlimited. So it's kind of a fantasy, kind of a dystopian book, because it's set in the future after the fall of civilization. People are blaming technology for everything that went wrong. And so we've kind of reverted back to a pre-tech kind of world. Instead of guns, people use bows and arrows. Women aren't allowed to do anything anymore except cook and clean and have babies. Little bit of a Handmaid's Tale kind of vibes. The protagonist is a young adult. I hate young adults. I have no patience for young adults. I want them to get off my lawn. So I am not the target audience for this. If you are, it's a great entryway into the series, and the book is very readable. Compelling characters. There's nice little bit of tension at the beginning, and it's a strong start. I recommend it if you like this genre. Next is a book that Nick read, and it's called Victory's Wake by Daniel Gibbs, the first of 5 books in the Deception Fleet military sci-fi series. The other books are between $1 and $3 each, and they're all in Kindle Unlimited. The 5th book is scheduled to be released next month. So, Nick, what did you think?
Well, so first of all, I am the target audience for this book because I am literally still in the military, and I love military-esque science fiction. You can go into my Goodreads profile and see all of the books that I've rated highly, and they all have some aspect of either believable geopolitics or military or something along those lines in there. So this was definitely, I thought it was going to be right up my alley. I saw the cover and I was like, ooh, I'll take that one. And I really didn't like it, unfortunately. The premise is kind of sound, but the problem is there's this old trap that you can get into when you're writing these sorts of things. Is you take a political or a geopolitical structure or system that exists in reality, and you put some sci-fi skin on it, and then you put it in your book, and you think, aha, now I have written, a future sci-fi novel. And what you've really done is just writing a novel set in space about stuff that's happening right now. And I think that's probably what happened here, because right off the bat, the reader is dropped into this very complicated geopolitical system. I think I counted like 15 facts in the first 3 sentences. It was just super, super dense. To the point where I was having trouble keeping up, and I literally have a master's degree in military operations. So if that says anything to you at all. The other piece of this was that there was a little bit of an ideology issue where the way things were being set up and the good guys versus the bad guys was like extremely hard-bent libertarian. And I don't talk about politics, but if you're going to write a book that is extremely in one particular political vein, just keep in mind you're going to alienate everybody who's not. So it was the tale of the plucky group of people that really values their individualism, but somehow managed to band together and defeat this well-oiled war machine that happens to also be socialists, and like all kinds of things that were thrown in there that just didn't really ring true to me. So that's the issue with that one. That plus the fact that all of the characters spoke in the same voice, and none of them had any more than maybe 1 or 2 dimensions at the most. I really just was not super invested in it, and I quit like 2 chapters in. I was like, I'm done. So,
all right. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. We've got The King's Omega by Merri Wright. And so this is a romance. It's a fantasy romance set in a very stereotypical fantasy world. There's a king, and there's battles, and the war looming, and prophecies. So, and it's a romance. So it sort of has a lot of those romance tropes, which kind of are off-putting to me. It is very readable. Again, it's the first of 4 books in the Lost Lines romantic fantasy series. The other books are $4 each. They're all in Kindle Unlimited. And the 3rd and 4th books aren't out yet, but they're scheduled to be released later on this year. It's billed as a reverse harem book, which means that the female protagonist has multiple boyfriends. And it's built around the alpha-beta structure, which has been debunked numerous times when it comes to wolves. Wolves do not have alphas and betas. Wolves have parents and kids, and the parents boss the kids around. That's it. So, but it's this very common romantic trope that you have the alpha male and all that stuff. And I am just annoyed to hell with it. So in this fantasy world, it's humans, and there's alphas, which are the aggressive, dominant men, the betas, which are the average people, and the omegas, who are women with magical powers that are the perfect match to the male alphas, except that there's been a plague. All the omegas have been killed off, but now there's a prophecy that there is an omega in this kingdom, and the king has to find her before the enemy kingdom attacks and takes her for themselves. So a little annoyed about the premise, but it is a pretty fun read despite that. So I don't want to like this book, but I kind of did. So
Well, there you go. We got one that I wanted to like and didn't, and one that you didn't want to like and did. So we're even.
yep. Next, we have Find Me by Francesca Riley, the first of 4 books in the Immersed Young Adult Paranormal Romantic Suspense series. The other books are $3 to $4 each. They're not in Kindle Unlimited. The 4th book is scheduled to be released in October. So we have a 17-year-old girl who's the protagonist. Her mother disappeared when she was 10. And she's been having nightmares about drowning. She thinks her mother drowned, but they never found her mother's body. And she finds a document on her dad's computer that implies that her mother left him for somebody else. And then just like was never heard from again. So her best friend from the old town where they used to live, where the mother disappeared, calls her up and invites her to come over for the summer, and she figures it's a good opportunity to investigate and see if she can track down what happened to her mother. And so this town is in the middle of the ocean, and you have to take a ferry over there. It's a not too long a ferry ride. So she takes a bus down to the ferry, misses the ferry, has to get a ride with somebody else. There's a fog bank. The ship that she's on runs into the ferry. She falls into the water, almost drowns, and the angel from her nightmares comes and rescues her, or does he? So it has a creepy kind of vibe, which if you like, it's great and very readable. Again, not my kind of thing because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a fan of young adults. But if you are, very readable book, interesting characters, very interesting premise, a lot of suspense, and a very atmospheric when you get started. And finally, the last book on today's list is Crave Me, which is the 8th book in the 9-book Dragons Love Curves Paranormal Romance series. The other books are $5 each, and they're all in Kindle Unlimited. Now, when we get a free book that's in the middle of a series, I usually will read the first book in the series first, just on the off chance that I want to read the whole series, or you guys do, so I don't like spoil it for myself. So the first book in the series was Chase Me, and I've linked it down below. And by the way, I've also added links to the story so you can read the full reviews, and to each of the individual books so that you can get them. So the premise here is that there's shape-shifting dragons and the slightly overweight human women that they fall in love with. So, okay, good thing for the body positivity. I applaud that. So I started reading the first book. It had a very light rom-com kind of feel, which is a nice, break. Ciara is a wedding planner. She has a crush on one of the other employees in the company. Her mother owns the company. She's stressed and overworked. She's working a wedding when one of the guests accuses her of stealing something, some kind of magical artifact. She thinks the guy is crazy, tries to get away from him. And the next thing she knows, she's screaming as she's being grabbed by giant claws and lifted up into the sky by a dragon. So a big tonal change there from this rom-com workplace kind of comedy to all of a sudden dragon in the sky. And then we switch to the guy's point of view, the dragon. And oh my God, he is super annoying. And I am not a fan of romance books in general, but I am absolutely not a fan of super annoying male protagonists. If he's super annoying, do not date him. He's not going to get better. I don't care what the author says. He's not going to improve. He started out a jerk. He's going to stay a jerk.
Oh, Maria, but people and dragons can always change their ways. It's true. It's true.
No, people don't change. So, not a fan of this book. but a lot of people do love this genre, and I do have to say that the book is extremely readable. There's a lot of books in the series, and the author, Aidy Award or Award, has been on this list a lot. We've reviewed her books in November, in June. She's last week, she had 2 books on this list. She writes a whole bunch of alpha wolves kind of stories. There's a whole bunch of series, these kind of paranormal shapeshifter books, and super popular, very easy to read, not my kind of book. But if it is your kind of book, definitely, it's free. Check it out.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, and if you like this kind of content, please support our channel by hitting the like and the subscribe button. You can also support us on Patreon. All the money that we raise goes to pay for original fiction on the MetaStellar website. Everybody who works on MetaStellar is a volunteer. So what did you think of these books? Have you read any of them? Have you tried to read them? Let us know in the comments below, and see you next week.